Hey you guys, welcome back for another video here at Warehouse Guitar Amps. Today we're going to be doing a special project. We're going to be turning this Crate CR160 into a Fender Princeton. This amplifier was donated by a friend of mine and it doesn't really work anymore. So we're going to take it apart and build a point-to-point hand-wired amplifier inside of this chassis. We'll also be redoing the Tolex and repainting and labeling the front of the chassis. And we'll also be putting on new speaker grill cloth to the baffle. So stay tuned for this video and see how it turns out. I'm very excited to go through all of this for you. I know the video will be a little bit long, but hopefully you'll get some good information out of it. And away we go.
Kablam! It all came apart. So there's not too much that I can use here for the rebuild. Transformer is not the right kind. This is a solid state amplifier, so I wasn't too surprised. I was hoping there'd be some sort of voltage that I can use out of this, but nothing's gonna line up, so that's gonna go away. There's some large capacitors that I'll check out. I couldn't find any specific ratings on those, so but probably not going to be what I need. There's a bunch of these plastic molded 1/4-inch guys that are just garbage, so I'm not going to use those. Obviously don't have any use for the solid state amplifier section here. And the transistors, although, you know, I'll just put them aside just in case something comes in for repair. You just never know. Volume pots, tone pots, probably not going to keep these. They're, you know, kind of chintzy and they're soldered directly to the board, so pain in the butt to get off, and, you know, who knows if they're the right values for what I want to do anyway. Same with these switches. I might save these capacitors. These molded capacitors are probably fine. And of course I'll pull these integrated circuits off of here, because those are helpful in repair work for like guitar pedals and other solid state amps. Sometimes these go bad, so it'll be nice to have those kicking around. I don't need these Pico discs. Yeah, so that's about it really. I got one kind of okay jack here. This was the speaker output, so I'll reuse that for an input, or maybe an output, you know. See utility plug, that's handy. I'll reuse that. Fuse holder and fuse I'll reuse. Got a bunch of little parts like these star nuts and washers and things that'll come in handy. Strain relief. The power cord on this was garbage, so I just threw it away. I might reuse some of these knobs. Let's see. The posts are really small, so I kind of have to order special knobs for the inside to match, but we'll just kind of see what's available. So what did I end up with after all of that? Well, I've got a nice chassis, steel chassis, that I will repaint so that it's blank, and then I can label it however I want. I have lots of options here for knob placement. Because we're building a champ, I won't need hardly any of these. So, you know, I might just build a new faceplate for this or something, and just put my 1 or 2 knobs that I need in here. I'm going to reuse the AC switch because that's pretty handy. Yeah, so we got a chassis. That's what we got. And we've got a box, which is pretty dirty, so I'm going to start cleaning that up. And we've got a speaker, which is also pretty dirty, so I'm going to start cleaning that up. And we'll probably reuse this baffle, although I might make it a little nicer and recover it, because it was actually just screwed in through the side here, just like so that's not very steady and or very solid, and that could cause some rattling and buzzing. So we'll take a look at that here down the road. All right, stay tuned for what's next. All right, so we're working on the speaker here. It's got some rust and paint is coming off. So I just used a wire brush to kind of get it started, get the big stuff off. And then I'm gonna come back in with some sandpaper, just like some 120 or whatever. Get it down to a decent finish that's gonna hold paint, and then we'll mask it off and paint it. All right, ready to paint this guy. I use paper towels inside the magnet or the frame there, one per section. A little bit of gaff tape around the logo and some electrical tape around the magnet. Also a little more electrical tape on the terminals. I'm just gonna shoot it with a few really light coats of gloss black paint. Now we're gonna work on the chassis. I've got my transformer here. I've outlined the hole that I need to cut into the chassis and where the bolts are going to go through. So I'll just, I've drilled 4 small holes here, and then I'm going to drill 4 large holes to approximate the curve of the transformer here. So I have a nice fit going on. Then I'm also going to mount my output transformer using one of these existing holes and that mark right there. And I'll have all my leads from the output transformer go through this grommeted hole. All the wires from the transformer just stick out of the top of this guy, so they'll be inside the chassis. A couple of other things I'm doing. I'm filling these holes with little plugs. They're just little plastic inserts that you can put in there. There's a better view of them. I'm also using a little super glue on those so that they don't rattle once the amp is active again. Okay, now that I got my holes drilled, I'll go ahead and use a jigsaw with a metal cutting blade to connect all the dots and finish out. I've got all my mounting holes cut for my transformer here, my rectifier tube, output tube, and my 12AX7 tube here. And I've also ground down the paint here so I can get good ground connections when I fasten those in. I've also ground down the front panel so when I connect my input jacks and knobs, those will also be grounded to the chassis, hopefully in a good manner. So now, also the output jacks that I'm going to use here, I've ground those down. Now I'm going to go ahead and mount all of the hardware in there and start wiring. I've got my board here with my layout on it that I need to drill holes in and have my rivets, my eyelets in place to create the circuit. And so that's what I'll work on next. I have my component board finished with my eyelets punched in. Hopefully they're in there tight enough to hang on for dear life. So now I'm just going to load the board with all the components as described here in the Fender Princeton layout. I'll just go one for one. I'm not making any substitutions yet, unless I happen to not have a component, but I have something kind of close. I might do a little swapping there. And then, of course, once it's all put together and we are testing it, we might make some substitutions at that point as well. But for now, just gonna clean this up and load it and solder everything on. The only other thing I'll say about wiring up the boards is to make sure that you wire all of the underneath components as well before you install it. Makes it a lot easier and cleaner. And if you're new to schematics and layouts, these dotted lines here represent underneath the board connections, okay? So some of them come out on the bottom, some of them go point to point, some of them come all the way from the bottom up to the front. of the chassis. So just keep an eye out for that stuff. Some of these have extra eyelets that you can skip, like this connection here. You don't have to bring it up to the top of the board. You can just simply have a long wire come out and go to your component underneath. Same with this over here. We're going to do something completely different than this heating filament wire that they've got running through the board. So, but you know, if they advise you to connect two components under the board, go ahead and do it that way. So just keep an eye out for these dotted lines, okay? Got all the components soldered onto the board here with my wires coming off. That will be connected to tube sockets and volume pots. You don't have to use my color code system, but it's important to use some sort of color code system so that you can remember where everything goes when it's time to install it. So for my purposes, I've got blue cathode, red plates, and yellow grids. This white wire here is actually coming off this spot and is going to be my negative feedback. I'm going to put a switch on that at the top. Normally it would just go be connected straight to the speaker jack to provide that negative feedback in here, but I'm going to put it up to the front panel and put a switch in there so I can turn it on and off. Now we're going to finish working on the chassis so I can mount this inside and start soldering it to the other components. All right, I got my chassis pretty much ready to go here. All of my holes have been cut for my components. I sanded down the front and back and painted it with some flat black paint. And I removed some of the areas where I'm going to need to ground components, some of the paint from there, so we got good connections, including the front panel. I wasn't sure where I was going to put my volume and tone knob, so I just cleaned them all out and used my step bit to make these all 3/8 so that I could choose any one I want, because they were smaller than that for the little weird volume and tone knobs that were in there before. So anyone that I don't want to have a volume pot or a tone pot in, I'll just put one of those little fillers that I got. As far as the labeling goes, I ordered a stencil set from Radio Daze, D-A-Z-E. And so I'm going to try and use these guys to label my panel. And after I get my labels on there, I'm going to shoot it with a clear coat as well, just to protect the paint and these cool little decals. These are interesting. They're water slide decals. So the way they work is you get them wet, you cut them out, get them wet for a few seconds, and then after about 20 seconds, you slide the decal off of the paper and onto the chassis, and then it sets up in a few seconds. So this one was my first one, my little test here to kind of see how quickly it goes. And you don't have very much time to get it exactly where you want it, so that's why that one's crooked. So wish me luck as I do the inputs, volume, bright, tone, on-off switch, and I'll show you the results. Well, I got pretty excited after mounting some components and started wiring, so I decided I better stop and catch you guys up on progress so far. As you can see, I have my circuit board mounted into my chassis. I also have my tube sockets in here. There's my what's going to be my AX7, 12AX7, and then my power tube, my 6V6 over here, and then my 5Y3 rectifier tube will be there. The main transformer is in with all the wires. I'll go over how to run these in a little bit, and I've got my output transformer underneath here mounted with the speaker output wires coming to these two jacks, which will be my speaker jacks, and then the high voltage stuff is just kind of running over here for now, but eventually it'll get hooked onto my 6V6 and also over here to the B plus. All right, that's a little catch up. I did accidentally put this tube socket in the wrong way. These two are supposed to be in this caddy corner configuration. But actually this worked out pretty well. I don't have any wires crossing over one another, which is something you want to watch out for. Everything is kind of coming in a parallel state, so that's good. It should be fairly quiet in this configuration, which means, of course, these are also backwards. Well, or sideways, however you want to look at it. These two should be kind of here and here instead, but we'll just work with it. Not a big deal. Okay, so that's the update. I will talk to you after I finish wiring the rest of these tube sockets in, and then we'll start talking about the front part of the panel where the control knobs go and getting those wires straightened out. I'm working on taking the Tolex off the cabinet here. It's coming off pretty easy. This is particle board underneath, so the glue doesn't really stick tremendously well. Only tools you really need for this is maybe a box knife, flathead screwdriver, just to get things started. Everything should peel off by hand pretty easy. If you get to a spot that's really tough to pull away, then you might need to hit it with a heat gun. But if, you know, the thing you're working on is as old as this, which is like, you know, early 80s, that glue is going to be super dry and pretty easy to pull apart. All right, got all the Tolex off, and I went ahead and sanded it down just a little bit. These corners had been smashed in flat for the metal corners that they fit on here, but I'm not sure I want to use metal corners on this when I redo it with my Tolex. So I went ahead and sanded these a little more smooth so that Tolex wouldn't look weird on here and have like a weird flat spot on it. Also, just getting all the extra glue and stuff off of here is helpful. It's going to give my new glue something better to stick to than what was on there before. Also, I sanded the bottom inside quite a bit because there was a spot here that it was kind of swollen and risen up. It was wet at some point, and once I started sanding it, I realized that it was some sort of mouse urine. Ew! So I sanded that down as far as I could before, or until the smell stopped, and now I'll reseal this with some flat black paint. Cool. We got the baffle all set here. I've removed the grill cloth that was super gross. And yeah, this turns out to be a piece of plywood, which is cool. Very helpful. It'll sound better than particle board for sure, which the rest of the cabinet is made out of. The way it was mounted in here originally was with screws coming in from the side of the amp, and there's actually quite a bit of gap between this baffle and the cabinet. So I'm trying to decide if I'm just going to go ahead and make a new baffle that fits a little tighter, or if I'm going to set this thing back a little bit and maybe put a surround that the baffle can come up against. I don't think that'll cause any problems with the amplifier chassis or with the depth of the speaker. There's not really anything behind it, so I should be able to do that. That'll make it look a lot nicer, and it'll have a tighter sound profile. I think what I'll do is on the baffle itself, this is the side facing outwards, I'll go ahead and put some strips here so I can suspend the grill cloth off of this plate just a little bit, off the baffle a little bit. That just tends to look a little better rather than being able to see through the grill cloth to these nails and everything else that's hanging out down there. And then I'll go ahead and put in some strips here of wood to mount the baffle against. That should look a little cleaner and sound a little nicer. It'll make because of the Tolex will wrap around those new pieces that I'm putting in, it'll make the cabinet look a little thicker, maybe a little more like television style fender from back in the day, but I don't think I'll come in that much. Probably just 3/4 of an inch or so to give us an opportunity to cover up that gap. Okay, update on the cabinet. I've got my rails put in now. You remember that the original speaker baffle, they had just screwed in from the side into the speaker baffle to hold it together. And that was a fairly crude way to do it. Also, there was a big gap between the speaker baffle and the edge of the cabinet. So I went ahead and put these rails in to screw into. They're just glued in and they're set back about 1.25 inches because my speaker baffle now has some strips on the top. So now it's basically 1 inch thick. So I need that extra 1.25 inches because there's going to be speaker grill cloth on the front and the back. And I want it to be a little bit recessed from the very front of the cabinet. So these strips that I put on here, you'll notice actually extend past the edge of the baffle just a little bit on both sides. I'm hoping that's gonna take up the space where it was gapping here between the edge of the baffle and the speaker cabinet. If it's too tight after I get the Tolex onto the cabinet, I'll just trim some of that off using the table saw until I get a good fit that's not overly tight and not loose. All right, I'm gonna do a video real quick on how to do the grill cloth on our speaker baffle. I've already cut the piece out and I've left about 2 inches of extra material all the way around. Any less than that and you're gonna be sad that you didn't leave more. So just, you know, cut about 2 inches extra. No fancy tools, just a pair of scissors here. My speaker baffle, I have painted these new strips that I put on here, and you can see I've sized it to the finished cabinet, and I still have a little bit of extra material on the edge here to make up for that gap that was happening between the baffle and the cabinet. So now there's going to be a nice snug fit once I get this material on there. And I'm going to go ahead and mount the camera in a tripod and do a little time lapse for you on how to secure this down. Let me just kind of talk you through it real quick. Basically what I'm going to do, and you'll see me do it, is I'm going to put a single staple here in the bottom and then lightly tension the top, put a single staple there, lightly tension the left side staple, right side staple. Then I'll turn it over and look at it, make sure that all my lines are straight and perpendicular. And then I'm going to put another couple of staples with a little bit of tension, another couple of staples with a little tension, and on until I get all the staples put in right next to each other, all the way across, all the way around, making sure that there's no deviation in the lines going up or down in the grill cloth. All right, here we go. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to normal speed to do the corners so you can watch the technique here. Basically, I just want to get a staple in as far over as I can this way, then fold the material over, a staple in as far in as I can that way, and then I'll cut backwards against that corner with the scissors. The end cut at the corner here, I want to gather these together and make a single cut going up, but I don't want to do that until I have these secured down. If I make the cut too early, it might get loose and shaggy, so I want to do this, make that cut at the last possible moment. So I'm still going to tension here a little bit and get that guy in, and then I'll fold over and tension the other way before I put this one in. There we go. And then I'll make my cut back. And then a single cut like that. You can see that edge is going to stay tight because I tensioned it here and here. When I'm done with all of the corners, then I'll come in and remove this extra material with the scissors. But first I'm going to fill in all of these missing staples so that I have basically a continuous line of staples going all the way around. And when I make that cut, I'm going to do it so that the speaker is not in contact with any of the grill here. I want it to mount flush to the baffle, and I don't want to have any unevenness so that when I tighten it down, it doesn't tweak the frame of the speaker in any way. Okay, there you go. Finished product. Got this nice and trimmed. This might be a little close here for the speaker basket. If I need to, I can pull these staples and put them a little further back, but I think we're going to be all right. And then here's the front. Everything nice and square. You can always double check your work by placing one of these lighter threads or a seam along one edge to see if it carries over all the way. Same with these, the ones on the horizontal. Put one on there and see if it holds all the way. And then we just really want to avoid any like pulling in any dramatic fashion in any one area. So we have nice even tension across here, and with those little pieces that we put on here, we have a nice separation between the grill cloth and the speaker baffle. So that looks a lot better to me. All right, I've got my 4 pieces of tweed cut. The only thing different than a normal covering setup is that you want to make sure that the pattern is going in the correct direction. So we want this, when it's laid on the cabinet, to go up and to the left. Okay, so if you're looking at the side of the cabinet here, we want the pattern to go up and to the left. Okay, so that means it'll go across and to the left on the top, and then up and to the left on the other side. So that's the only thing different than the normal Tolex, is just to keep an eye out to make sure that all of your pieces go up and to the left, and then the pieces on the top correspond. Okay, now we're gonna Tolex the speaker cabinet, and we're done Tolexing. Yeah, I did this while you guys weren't looking. If you want to know how to apply Tolex to a cabinet, I have a video on this already, and you can look it up, where I re-Tolex a Fender Super that had been damaged in transport and had to get a repair on the box and then a new Tolex job. So if you're interested in how to do that, go ahead and watch that video. I'm gonna go ahead and not bore you guys with another 45 minutes of how to apply Tolex, and simply move on from here with my Tolex and my speaker baffle. Next up, we are going to finish the chassis. I just got that one switch to put in there, and then we will remount the speaker, screw the baffle onto the cabinet, put on some hardware, and we'll be all done. Then of course we'll do an audio test. All right, we've got a finished amp. I realized I kind of skipped over a couple of things, so I'm going to try and catch up here on a few items. The first being the circuit board. This material is FR4 board, and I actually ordered it on Amazon. It comes in square sheets, and I've just cut it down into a strip that was about the right size for what I needed to do. I literally just drew the circuit on here with a pencil, and then copying those layouts that you've seen me pointing at, and then drilled holes in each one of these spots where we need to have a point, and then I put an eyelet in there, 1/8" eyelets that are hollow in the center, and they sort of act like grommets on the back side. You smash them between a couple of things, and they flatten out, and then they stay in the board. I just used the back end of a large drill bit for the top because it's kind of got that dimpled shape that you want. And then I have like a bolt that I've sharpened to a point for the bottom part to flatten that out. And that's held together in a drill press, and I just smash the two pieces together in the drill press, and it sets my eyelets for me. Once I've got everything laid out the way I want it, then I just go over the board with some cleaner and get all of the pencil marks and stuff off. So that's how I set up my circuit boards. A couple of other things that aren't on the schematic that I've added on here. This is a grounding bus. It's connected to, the third electrolytic capacitor there, and goes all the way to this first position. And so anything that needs to be grounded from the faceplate, I went ahead and grounded to this bus, as well as everything is also grounded to the chassis through the connection that this makes, the physical connection here to the faceplate. But this is a little extra insurance for grounding and making sure things are quiet. Okay, so ground bus there. I did finally get my switch in for the negative feedback, so now I can turn that on and off whenever I'd like to. And get those two cool sounds. Something else I didn't mention in the last video is the high voltage coming from the transformer. There's two different voltages available from this particular transformer. There's one that's 300 something volts here, and then one that's a lower voltage. I had this one hooked up originally. I thought it sounded fine. But then I switched it over to the higher voltage because that matched more what the schematic was calling for. So that's one of the things I wanted to point out. That's really about it for this amplifier. I think what I'll do now is do a little audio test with this guy, and then I will put it back into the speaker box, the cabinet, and it'll be all finished, and I can kind of show you side by side of this finished amplifier and the original one that I started with. All right, before we do the audio test and before I put this back into the cabinet, I'm doing a bias check on it real quick. I've got my Euro tubes plugged in there, and the bias reading for the 6V6 was too high. It was 14 watts, which is the maximum tube output, so that was not going to work. I was just about to swap out my cathode resistor for something of a higher value to try and bring the plate current down, when I thought I would try a 6L6 in there instead, and that is working very well. So I put the 6L6 in, and now we've got about 18 watts of plate dissipation, and that's perfect for 6L6, biased at about 70%. So assuming my output transformer can handle this tube, we're just going to go with a 6L6 and a higher total volume and output from this amplifier. Very happy with that. So now we'll do an audio test, and then we'll get it back into the cabinet. All right, audio test for the Fender Champ clone with the tone knob. I've got the volume set at about 12 o'clock. Tone is straight up as well. I'm playing a Telecaster through a 12-inch speaker. Okay, now we'll try it with the bright switch on. Okay, now here it is with the negative feedback. Okay, the bright switch off and negative feedback. Here's an idea of what the tone switch does, tone knob does for us. It's all the way to the right. Here's all the way to the left. It's super muddy. There you go. All right, here it is, all finished up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of converting a crate solid-state amp into a Fender Champ clone with a tone switch or tone knob in there, bright switch, and negative feedback switch. I will attempt to get a picture of this amplifier side by side with the original one as it was. Oh yeah, we probably want to see that speaker that we spent all that time repainting. It turned out pretty good. Kind of shiny in there. And I managed to keep the Fender logo and sticker visible. There's that 6L6 came in at the last minute, saved the day. I think that's gonna make a big difference in the performance of this amplifier, and I'm excited to try it out. Anyway, hopefully you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and look for more stuff coming soon. Head to